Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Julian Montgomery. So I'm a Cubase user. I use Cubase 13 Pro, and I'm considering switching to Logic Pro. And one of the things I'm taking a look at is Dolby Atmos. They both have Dolby Atmos fully built in. You don't have to rely on any external tools if you don't want to. And so I figured while I'm taking a look, I'll make a short video and kind of show you how you use Dolby Atmos in both of those DAWs. All right, we're going to start first with Cubase, since that's the DAW I'm most familiar with. And I'm going to show you how to take an existing stereo session and convert that to an Atmos session. Now, what I've done here is I've downloaded some free audio files. This is some files that are free if you want to learn mixing or do demos. And this is from a group called Alan Stone, and it's a piece of music called Naturally. And I'll play it here real quickly so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. All right, so to convert a session to an Atmos session, you go to Project and then ADM Authoring. And Cubase provides this setup assistant, which is kind of basically a little wizard to convert your project. And so click that, and I'm gonna go ahead and click all of these. I'm gonna add a main mix channel, that's a 7.1.4 channel. I'm gonna add a bed channel, and then I'm gonna route all of these existing audio tracks to the bed and click OK. Now, pay attention to this little red dot here. It should have changed to green. That lets you know that you're already set to go. But I have a little bug in my installation right now, and so the setup assistant isn't working correctly. I'll actually open up the mix channel, the mix console. Oops. And you'll see there should be a channel over here that is it would be named Renderer 7.1.4, and you won't see it anywhere here. It's like it didn't create that channel. So I'm gonna do it manually. So I'll add a bus, name it Renderer 7.1.4. 7.1.4 configuration, and I'll say OK. And I'm just gonna disconnect this. And I'm gonna set this as my main mix channel. Now I have this channel here. And now on this channel, I'm gonna add the renderer plugin. So now you'll see I have this plugin here, and you'll see, so here it shows all of the objects that are in use. Now these first ones are for the bed, and then you have basically 118 objects that you can use. And you have this view here. This is the only view that you get in Cubase of all the objects in your session, and it's just a top-down view. And then here's where you can, like in my case, I don't actually have a full 7.1.4 setup. So I do binaural. So I would set this to binaural. So now I have all of my tracks routed to the bed. And if I were to just kind of play here, you'll see, I'm getting some audio. And I'm really just going to the left, to right, and the center channel, because I haven't changed any of the panning of any of these objects. So actually, they're not even objects yet. They're just all routed to the bed. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these. Let me bring up the ADM authoring tool again. And with this tool, here, I should have pointed out, now this is green, and that lets you know you're all set up. So now I'm going to convert these to be objects. Now the way you would do that is, there's actually a couple different ways, and I'll show you. The quick way is to just select the channels go to this drop down here and say create objects from selected tracks. So now this will take all of those tracks and create objects from them. And in this ADM authoring window, I can assign these basically to a group. This is just, if you were to like give this to a mastering engineer, you might want to have, you might want to have things in different groups to kind of indicate, which ones are drums, which ones are guitars. I'm just assigning them to a music group, all of them, and I did all of them at the same time by I'm on a Mac, so I held down Shift Option and then made a selection, and then I can change the binaural settings for each one of my objects in this window as well. Additionally, in this window, you can open up the trim and down mix editor and make any adjustments here. Generally for music, you're gonna set these to 0. And the 5.1 down mix control to direct render. And then you can also adjust the binaural settings for your bed. So that's basically kind of how this ADM authoring window works. Now, you can also manually add tracks, and sometimes you have to in Cubase. So these are all audio tracks, they added fine. But let's just say I have an instrument track. So I'm gonna add an instrument track, and I'll just add keyscape. All right. So now let's go back to this ADM authoring window, and I'm gonna select, I have this track selected. And so if I click now, create objects from selected tracks, nothing happens. It doesn't show up here. So there's certain kinds of tracks in Cubase, for some reason, they don't get added through this way of adding objects. So what you have to do is manually add an object. You go click add objects, and then in here you can select any track that is routed to the standard bed. So like when I created this track, let me pull this up. I routed it to the standard bed. Now because of that, then when I go to the ADM authoring tool, now it's available to me. And I can add an object. And you can either type in a name, or you can, let's say you have a bunch of these that you added, you can select them and then just say apply source track name, and it'll add the name. I'll just assign this to my music group. I'll just leave this as is for now. So now I have a bunch of objects. So now that I have these objects, I can adjust the panning. Now in Cubase, when you convert your project to an Atmos project, your panning changes to this multi-panner. And this kind of gives you the ability to pan your object all around the room. So you have this little arrow here that you can click to expand the view. And if you expand it, you get this little theater view. And so you can see I can pan left and right, I can pan up and down, and I can pan height as well. I can do that through these knobs, or I can at least do the left and right and up and down through this window here. And then there are also some tools up here, so some little shapes that you can add in if you want to use them. So I could use this shape, for example. Then as I pan around, it'll pan around this particular shape. Or I could use this shape, and it'll pan around a little bit differently, where when I move toward the center, I'm moving closer to the listener's head. So these are kind of cool little shapes if you want to use them. Then there's also these knobs here. So this one allows you to orbit around the center. So let's say, I want to orbit whatever I'm doing around the center. I just keep moving this. I can, orbit in either direction. Or you have the rotate, which basically, let's say I have this here and I want to rotate around this point. Then you can rotate. You can also tilt X or Y. And then you have the width and you have the size. Those are primarily what I use in this panner, and it has a lot of functionality, and all of these can be automated. So one of the things when you do automation, let's see, which track is this? This is drum room M60. So I'm going to automate some of this, and you'll see how it handles the automation in Cubase. And I'm just gonna write this in live. All right, so let me close this. So you'll see now I created all these automation lanes. This is my left and right panner, front and rear panner, my Z panner, up and down, and size, and so it writes all this automation. Now this is all good, but let's do automation for. I'm gonna undo all of this. Actually, let me just go back to my history here, and we'll go back to here. Now, I'm going to open up the panner here again, and I'm going to automate the pivot. So you see, I was just moving the pivot knob, but it writes all of this automation for the left and right, the front and rear, and then this rotation. So the challenge sometimes with automation is, let's say I wanted to smooth this out. I actually have 3 automation lanes that I need to work with. And that can be a little bit challenging sometimes, when you automate pivot. But yeah, all the automation works quite well. And the last thing that I will show you is, I'll go back to the ADM authoring window. And so if you want to export an ADM file, there's this button here to export an ADM file. Oh, I gotta give it some range here. I don't know, we'll just do this. Go back to here. So yeah, so this is how you export an ADM file. And that's pretty much, high level, how you deal with Dolby Atmos in Cubase. All right, so now we're here in Logic. And I've created a session using the same audio files. I'll just play it real quickly. All right, so here to take this session and convert it to an Atmos session, I will go to the Mix menu and go to Dolby Atmos. And then here, all I have to do is go to Spatial Audio and turn that from off to Dolby Atmos. It gives me this little prompt, and this is basically the bed is going to be 7.1.2. Say okay to that, and now I have an Atmos session. So you'll see now all of these have changed to surround as the output. So all of my tracks are surround tracks now. And so, and the other thing you'll notice is that on my master channel, I have the Atmos renderer plugin. And here is where I can select if I want to down mix to a binaural. Then there's different options that I can select here. This top one is the standard Dolby renderer, and then Apple has its own renderers for Apple's spatial audio, and it defaults to Apple's, of course. And then I can adjust the binaural settings for the bed. Only if I have the Dolby renderer selected, then I can change these options. And then I do have this 3D view, which is super nice. And I can look at it from different angles. And then it shows me here that I don't have any objects yet. So when I converted this session to an Atmos session, everything is just kind of routed to the bed. Now, if I take these objects, and I'll just take these this guitar, and I select the 3D object panner. Now I've created an object. So if I go back to this renderer, now it shows this guitar amp track, and I now am using one object. This is a mono track. And I'll do that for all these last 4 here. So now I have 4 tracks that are now objects, and now I'm using 5 objects. So one of these, this third one, this keys organ active, is a stereo track. These other 3 are mono. So I'll kind of show you how this panner looks. I'll actually take this one, open it up here. And the panning is pretty simple. You just have front and back, side and left and right, and you have height. So all of the tools that you have in Cubase are not available in Logic in terms of like pivoting or rotating. I mean, you can obviously do this all yourself manually. But there's no tool, and all of those kind of cone tools or kind of shape tools, those aren't available here as well. It's pretty straightforward. It's really clean, but maybe a little less functionality. And one important thing that is missing from Logic is there's nowhere to go and change your trim and down mix settings. So because of that, I'm not entirely sure how you would, it's recommended from Dolby to change those to 0. So I'm not entirely sure how you would do that in Logic Pro at this point in time. But I will, just kind of show how it looks in this 3D view here. I'll just move some of these around. I'll put those back there. I don't know what I'll move this one somewhere just so we can see it in space here. And then I'll move this here and this over to the right here. So now if I play this, now you can kind of see where your objects are in space. Now another thing that I will show you is, let's say you had a new project. So I'm going to close this one. And you want to create a new project, and right away that your project is going to be an Atmos project. Yeah, okay, here we go. I want to create an empty project, I can select right away down here, Dolby Atmos. You notice it changed the frame rate to 24. That's the standard frame rate in Atmos. Although for music it doesn't. It actually probably doesn't really matter. And it changes the surround format to 7.1.2. So I can create this empty project, and right away I'll have now I can create my project, and my audio output is going to be surround. So, that's a way you could do it if you know right from the beginning when you're creating your session that this is going to be an Atmos session. Now, one other thing that I wanted to show, I couldn't figure out how to get it to work, is I'll open this up here and you'll see that there are these grayed out options down here. So basically my understanding is if you are using, you can use like some AirPod Maxes or the AirPod Pros, the earbuds. And if you have those, you can actually kind of listen to your mix using head tracking. And so I have my AirPod Maxes. I'm gonna put these on. And I'm gonna go here and connect to these. Okay. Now I'm gonna go to my, actually Logic Pro just prompted me and asked me if I want to use these AirPod Maxes. I was actually getting ready to go and change to use those. So in my, I think it is here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it was right in front of me. So my output device is now my AirPods Max. So now that my output device is my AirPods, I expected I'd be able to go here and these would be enabled, but they're not. So there's something that I'm missing to enable it. I just kind of wanted to hear what it sounded like. I don't really use head tracking, but I just kind of wanted to see what it sounded like, but I can't quite figure out how to get that to work. So if you know what I'm doing wrong, leave a comment and help me out here. So anyways, that's Dolby Atmos and Logic Pro. All right, there you have it. That's Dolby Atmos and Cubase and Logic Pro. They both have their own strengths and weaknesses. I actually really am not sure which one I prefer yet. Cubase, it gives you a ton more options in terms of panning capability, but it doesn't have a 3D view of your whole session, of all the objects in your session. Logic Pro, on the other hand, doesn't have nearly as many options when it comes to panning, but they have a really nice 3D view of all the objects in your session. It's a little more streamlined, a little more clean, but for the sake of this clean, streamlined approach, they don't provide as much functionality. So, they're both good, they're both awesome. I'm not sure which one I prefer yet, but you can write in the comments what your thoughts are. So, I hope you've gotten something out of this short video. Keep following me, and please, subscribe and like if you can. That'll help me out, and I'll catch you in the next video.